We're starting with the big thing that's happening this week. It's the NHL Draft. It's in Montreal. And obviously, we care about the Leafs and the Habs. We're going to focus on their drafts especially. I do want to look at some overall stuff in the draft too because it's going to be a fun one. But obviously, it's going to be fun to talk about Toronto because of how wild that side of the draft is going to be. And it's going to be fun to talk about Montreal because of how fun that part of the draft is going to be, early and late. Okay, so this is officially the 201 podcast, draft preview of love and development is what I'm calling it because we love these prospects. All right, guys. First off, I'm just going to put this out here. What I have here is, and I have read a lot of lists, right? But these are the ones I focused on for today. Obviously, the Elite Prospects Draft Guide, which we have mentioned many times, and I think it's the most in-depth one to do with certain prospects and the tools in their arsenal, right?
It's 900 pages.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's insane. How far did you guys get into it?
I got up until the 15th, 16th pick, and then I didn't get back up.
Yeah, I tried to get through most of the first round.
Fair enough. Okay, beside that, Scott Wheeler, Corey Pronman, and just because this one is just a nice consensus one to go off of, Bob McKenzie's, of course, because he surveys scouts. It's a fun one. I think it's the most accurate one, but it's fun to have Bob McKenzie. Okay, this guy is a draft where COVID affecting development and evaluation of prospects, I think, is really going to affect a lot of projections. You could read 10 different draft lists, and they're all going to be completely different. I think there's a sense of maybe the top 12. I'm not even sure of that. We've put together our top 10 lists. I cheated and went to 12 because I was having a lot of problems.
Daniel, does that mean you went to 15?
I actually kept it at top 10 and then the Leafs pick.
Nice.
Fair enough. Okay, so I just wanted us to talk about a few things before we get too deep into it. Because first off, here's a big thing in this draft, and there's actually an article in The Athletic from Dan Robson and Michael Russo about this, the Russian factor in all this. We all know about the invasion of Ukraine. I don't care what GMs say about this draft not being too effective. I'm going to take it with a grain of salt because there are a lot of questions about Russian players, and especially ones that are in Russia, and are they going to be able to come back? Now, I mention this because there are 3 Russian players in The Athletic mentioned them, that being Pavel Mitnyukov. I'm not going to say all these right, I'm sorry. Danila Yurov and Ivan Miroshchenko are all 3 Russians that could go in the first round. Miroshchenko is one that question mark, so we're going to do him a little later. But the other 2, now Yurov and Miroshchenkov play in Russia. Mitnyukov plays in Saginaw. But those other 2 could be affected by that. Now, obviously, there is some other stuff, a.k.a. the prospect who was detained in Russia for allegedly avoiding service, the one that had just signed with Philly. Lot there. We don't know. Freeman talked about in 32 Thoughts, but conversation for another day. I also want to talk about 3 certain players before we get too deep into this, because these are who I'm christening the wild cards of the draft. Number 1, Brad Lambert. We know he's got the speed, he's got the skill, he's got the transition game, but an incredibly inconsistent season in the Liga. A lot of questions are around his hockey sense. He's had, apparently he was like top 5 pound at the beginning of the year, but his stock has taken a really big hit. And here's a really good quote from Elite Prospects, is David St. Louis. Quote, Lambert abuses his skills to the utmost degree. And in his prospect thing in Elite Prospects, he was quoted as having shades of William Nylander in his game, gentlemen.
Man,
Alex is a fan.
I know you felt like you threw me under the bus there a little bit. No, I remember a few years ago, was he not the consensus 1-2 with Shane Wright?
I believe he was, yes.
Right. So we've been talking about Brad Lambert for years. It's just that he's really fallen. There was another guy last year, right? Was it Atu Ratti?
Yes.
Who was the consensus 1 and 2 with why am I blanking on who's Owen Power. And then he didn't even get drafted in the first round. The Islanders picked him up, I believe, in the second. So
yep. I remember I wanted the Habs to get him, and they got me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that, guys. And he also apparently has some shades of Matt Barzal in his game. Like, again, the skill and the speed is right there. It's just everything else. Another guy here, we talked about him here, Daniel, Ivan Miroshnichenko, and I know I'm saying it wrong. A guy who was projected to go top 10, has top 10 skill, but health questions after fighting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma all of last year. He is cleared to play next season. Now, just a word for a lot of these players is a team that probably has multiple first-round picks are the ones who are most likely to take this risk, at least in my opinion. And in a second, I'm going to read all the teams that have multiple first-round picks, and some of them are going to surprise you. We're just going to call him Miro for this because it's very difficult to say his name. But that's an interesting player to me, at least.
I agree with you. I think that, and it's been written before, Eric Stevens has written about it, James Murrell's written about it, that there are teams that are going to be at that lower part of the first round, and when they look at what's there this year between 25 and I'll say 37, I think there's going to be a team that's going to take a chance on them.
Mm-hmm. And the third one, this is a guy I've been very interested in. Lane Hudson. Now, this guy's draft rankings, I believe Scott Wheeler, who's a big fan of him, has him in the first round. Other guys have him around the second. Undersized D. He's 5'8", 159 pounds wet, I would assume. But he, like, I at least kind of, the way I read him is he's a boom bust kind of pick. Great passing, great on zone entries. There's questions about if his game is going to translate to the NHL level. So he screams a normal second round pick. But again, I wonder if a team takes it. There's a lot of comparisons to Sam Girard. There is a lot in his scouting reports, especially the elite prospects, ones that maybe he's a bit all over the place at least. But that's a guy, if I have an early second rounder, or if I am a team like Buffalo who has 3 firsts,
jeez,
pick 28, and we'll go into the details again because it's really fun. I wouldn't be surprised if they took a risk on someone like him. But that's the guy I'm very interested in, is Lane Hudson.
I mean, Montreal is 26.
They do, yes. And then this is the guy I was telling you before the show where I wouldn't mind if they took him. Or if they used pick 33, I wouldn't mind, but I would like Lane Hudson. I like him a lot. Even though there's a lot going on in the left side of the world right now, the left side of defense. But left side of the world, that's a whole other issue, isn't it? If only Mike was here, he'd have plenty to say. Okay. Gentlemen, we've mentioned it a few times already. Teams with multiple first-round picks. 2 teams have 3 firsts. Arizona have 3rd, which is their own. 27, which was Carolina from the offer sheet for Kotkaniemi that Montreal sent for the Dvorak deal. And 32, which is obviously Colorado's from the Darcy Kuemper deal. In fact, the other team is Buffalo. They have 9, which is their own. 16th, which is from the Eichel deal. And 28, which is Florida's from the Sam Reinhart deal. Never forget that the first for Ben Sherratt is next year, and it's unprotected. 5 teams have 2 first-rounders. Montreal obviously have 1st, which is their own, and 26 from the Tyler Toffoli deal. Winnipeg have 30 from the Rangers, the Andrew Kopp deal, and 14th, which is their own. The Anaheim Ducks have 10th, which is theirs, and 22, which is Boston from the Lindholm deal. Columbus have 12th, which is their own, and 6th, never forget, is Chicago's from the Seth Jones deal last year. Never forget.
I feel like no one's talked about that.
I know it's been very quiet.
It's been super quiet that Chicago does not have their own 6th overall pick. But whatever.
If it was in Canada, we'd be roasting them.
Oh yeah.
And a team that I forgot had their 1st, but they do, and they have LA's, which is 19 from the Fiala deal, along with 24th, which is their own. The Minnesota Wild have a pair of first-round picks, which I think is very interesting. So look for either of those teams that I've just mentioned to sort of take a funny swing. Or if you're in the case of probably Montreal, Arizona, this team only has 1 first-rounder, but they have so many seconds. Seattle, if they're smart, those teams are going to use their draft capital to move up and get certain players. But that was fun. It was fun looking back at the first round and being like, oh, this and this. The thing that really stood out to me was how Tampa owned their first-round pick this year. Obviously not next year and the year after because that's Chicago and the Brandon Hagel deal, I believe. But it's really weird to see Tampa with a first-round pick because it feels like they never have them anymore.
It was weird to me, like what you mentioned with the Brandon Hagel trade, that when I think about them and I think about immediacy, I always expected, okay, it's going to be this first-round pick as well going the other way. But, they did bet on themselves. And they're going to give their next 2.
Don't worry, guys. They're top 10 protected. So
which is just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Okay. Now, these are some stories that I want people to keep an eye on in the draft too. Okay. First off, obviously, the fun starts at 1. Unless you're a Habs fan, it's not very fun feeling right now. So Bob McKenzie, in his last draft ranking, after talking to scouts and that, had Yurov Slavkovsky atop his draft ranking, which was a grenade right to Habs Twitter, I will mention. Now, I'm also going to read you a quick screenshot that was just it was just a transcription of something that Pierre LeBrun saw on Insider Trading. Habs Chronicle had it out. Pierre LeBrun mentioned on Insider Trading that the Habs are still undecided as of today on who they will pick. He believes they are open to flipping the pick with New Jersey if the Devils really want Slavkovsky. Now, that tells me they want right. And Friedman has said also in 32 Thoughts that came out today, the blog, that the Habs have been very close to the chest with what they've been about who they're going to pick. Now, guys.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Alex.
No, I was going to say all this is like, it's not that it's unprecedented, right? I feel like for 3 of the last 5 drafts, we've had this where we're approaching the draft. And it's like, okay, we think we have a consensus, and then we don't have a consensus. Matthews and Laine, Hischier and Patrick, and then Kakko and Hughes. All leading up to that draft, we all talked about who was going to go first.
Mm-hmm. There's also with 2013, I remember, where Seth Jones was ranked number 1. Ended up going 4th to Nashville. And then there was also the rumor too. It's like, are the Avalanche going to trade the pick? Are they open to trading the pick to get improvements immediately for that core instead of taking Nathan MacKinnon?
And I think it worked out for them.
Yes. Was a discussion?
Yeah, because remember they had like that, like O'Reilly, Duchesne, Stasny core.
Now, Scott Wheeler has talked about that. I think internally, I feel like those past drafts guys probably know who they're taking. Like Scott Wheeler's talked about, apparently the Leafs were pretty sure about getting Austin Matthews, but there was a lot of outside noise. So, and this is what's annoying about the Habs is I just wish we knew. But, you know, a lot of it feels like was fed from the outside. Like we look at, like Grant McCagg has obviously just been the bane of my existence. And just it's just been awful. It's just been awful. Don't take Slavkovsky. Don't do it. Don't do it. Guy didn't have Simon Nemec in his top 10. Like, let's don't even do this. Liam Algren, though. Great play. No, stop it. But yeah, it's been Kakko Hughes was another interesting one. And even like you look back at the Hischier draft too, is internally afterwards it came out that some teams had, I think Freeman was the first one to talk about this, how some teams had Pettersson first overall. And then obviously then you look at in a redraft, obviously Heiskanen's around there, unless I'm getting this all mixed up. Makar's obviously first in that list too. Patrick's close to not being in the league anymore, and he's just a fine player. Which isn't bad, but I mean, it's just a fine player. And that's the thing with this draft is there aren't any superstars. I think if you're taking Shane Wright, you send him back to junior for a year, but they're just going to be solid NHL players, top 6 forwards, top 4 D. If you're a good developmental team, maybe you can turn them into something more. But if we're going to have our own discussion here, and listen, I've been yelling about Shane Wright for months now, and I'll give a more detailed analysis in a second. But you guys, who would you take first, and why are you taking that player? And I will not scream at you if you say Slavkovsky.
I can go first. I'm going to take Shane Wright. To me, I'm just pulling this up here. I had the notes, and of course, they decided to go way off from me. But the idea here was, I like it. It was super interesting to me on Elite Prospects where they had like comparables. You know, they have that at the top, or shades of, they call it, which I actually like. I like that so much better than comparables. It's such a better word. They had Patrice Bergeron, and then they had Mika Zibanejad. who are like two completely different players in my eyes, at least. Like when you look at Patrice Bergeron, obviously, probably one of the best defensive forwards, but one of the best two-way forwards, to play. And, you know, we've already been talking about Nick Suzuki, who already has shades of Patrice Bergeron. And I think if you can get another guy like that, and, you know, he has the highest floor according to Elite Prospects. He has the second highest ceiling. And they have him ranked as the best two-way forward of the draft. And I think for Montreal, I think having a 1-2 of Suzuki and Shane Wright, even if they're more quote defensively minded centers. Also, like, remember, they say the same thing about Matthews. Remember, his comparable was Anze Kopitar coming in to the first NHL season, and we didn't get that at all.
And now he's Joe Sakic.
Yeah, like we didn't get that at all. So I think Shane Wright's the answer here.
Before I throw it to you, Daniel, I just want to mention, for people who always, and I agree with you so much about the shades of thing, I think what you can see, and people have said maybe he's not going to be a Selke guy at first, but when you see, and this is when people always overblow comparables, and another great reason why shades are good, is a lot of really good, another thing Elite Prospects have rated very highly with is his problem solving. He thinks the game at an incredibly high level. And that is something Patrice Bergeron does very well. So that's where you could see it. A lot of people don't talk about right shot. It's not elite, but it's a damn good shot. So maybe you could sort of see the comparables there to Mika Zibanejad and all that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, for me, it's also Shane Wright. What Alex was saying about all those comparables, those shades, I think for me, yes, he doesn't scream franchise savior right now, but it is that type of player that you do need eventually when you want to compete again. And I think it's just the perfect situation, in my opinion. The Habs have professed patience. They've shown what they're able to do. And it is a system I trust. They're going to take the time they need with someone like Shane Wright. The fit is there as a center. He plays a solid two-way game. And listen, we've mentioned, and we don't know what he's going to be like, but we mentioned Patrice Bergeron a lot. And I know that he made it as an 18-year-old, but what we remember for Patrice Bergeron was a lot later in his career as well. He debuted in 2004, but then we didn't really see that elite Patrice Bergeron until, I'll say, 2011, after that massive injury he had. You know, he went to the Olympics, but then he just emerged as the star we see him now. So I like this pick. I like the patience there, and I think it's a perfect match because it works well with that lack of immediacy with the second team we're going to talk about afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, listen. Here's my thing. First off, I have Slafkovsky 5th.
You have him 5th.
Listen, I am not a draft expert, but I read. All right, that's the best I can give you. I have him 5th because I am terrified of late growers in the draft. I like Jiricek more. I like Nemec more. Apparently it's Nemec, not Nemec, which is annoying. Simon Nemec, I like him more. I like Logan Cooley more. I was tempted to put Frank Nazar higher, but and I want to talk about him especially later because his draft ranking is confusing me a lot. Listen, big guy, I get it, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned about his play in the Liga, the production there. It worries me a lot. Okay, it just does. Here's my thing with Wright, and it's more against the criticism some people have here. Is Shane Wright has been at the top of this draft for years now. This is a guy who was exceptional status since the OHL a couple of years ago, right? And then what happened? COVID. And the OHL was one of the leagues that got so just torn up by it, right? And then people look at Wright and his 90-point year and say he didn't get to the expectations that a first-round projected guy should be at. Because he lost a year because the OHL was ruined. He's 18. He's got the hockey sense, the hockey IQ. He's got all the tools there that prove that he should be first overall. And just if anyone thinks that a player, and sorry if I've said this on the podcast before, I've had so many discussions with the guys and Mike off the show group text, FaceTime, and all that. I just forget what we've said here and outside. It all phases together, right? This has been my life for the past month. If you think that this kid has peaked at 18 after everything he's been through, I think you're an idiot, and I don't think you should be a scout. I don't know how to skate.
You think his peak is what?
So some people will think that Shane Wright has peaked, which and how dumb does that sound?
Huh.
Like, I may not be a scout, I may not be a hockey player, but guys, come on, he's 18. There's all the tools there for Shane Wright, and I think he's the best player in the draft above all else. And I don't think when you have that, and I'm not just saying you draft him because he's a center, because that happened with Kotkaniemi, it didn't work. That was a bad pick. Everything points towards you should take Shane Wright, and I don't care about how well Slavkovsky played against Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan.
That doesn't tell me anything. So I think it's Shane all day. And I think the moment you have Suzuki and Wright down the middle for the next 15 years, that's so your center core is so well off and so healthy for that time. And you've got those two, you've got the winger, you've got your defenseman, Romanov and Caulfield especially. You can see maybe Primo's the guy in the future. You've got pieces there. You're not set off yet, but it's a good way to start. That's simply where I am with Shane Wright first. Okay. Let me just double check my notes here. Okay. Another story I want to talk about quickly before we get into all the sort of the list and that. Listen, Jiricek and Nemec. For those of you who don't know, they're the top two rated defensemen. Jiricek, I would say, is a more old-fashioned sort of great defensive guy. Can't move the puck a bit, but maybe not as well as Nemec. But Jiricek is like 6'3", big shot. Jiricek is the big guy, big shot. And Nemec is more, obviously, like Jiricek. There's a bit too... No, sorry, I was about to get a mix up with another defenseman. There's sort of two different ends of the spectrum. A lot of people have been high on Nemec. I know Patrick Talon is especially. But it's been those two all year. I know Elite Prospects actually has Jiricek second. I've seen lists where Nemec is top 3. So that's a nice little battle you can keep out for. And people have sort of speculated maybe Seattle go and get one of the defensemen. I guess it's different philosophy. I don't know if maybe they look at the fact that they've got a big, grueling defense and maybe they want more puck movers and they take a chance on Nemec, but we can get to that a little later. Okay. Guys, I want two things out of this draft, right? I obviously want Shane Wright, and God help me, if Detroit get Frank Nazar, I will be so mad because it just strikes me as the kind of thing they do. Because
it definitely. I was thinking about that hard when I was doing the top 10. Frank Nazar is such an interesting one because, Elite Prospects have him at 5th. Mm-hmm. Corey Pronman at The Athletic had him at 19th. Bob McKenzie had him at 15th. The NHL draft rankings themselves, just North American skaters, have him at 21st. And Sam Constantino has him at 14th. Like, we'll get, like, I don't get Frank Nazar. I get Frank Nazar. I don't get the just all over the place-ness of where he's ranked.
I think it's, for me, like, and this is not my opinion, just what I've been reading. It's the skill is there. Yep. The talent is there, but what did we say before? He's a bit of a short guy.
He's 5'10". That's how tall I am.
I know, but for a center,
that's for a hockey player and a center. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the comparables they had for him was what? Marco Rossi. And that's still an elite pick, but I think that's what I in my view, that he's going all over the place along the board, at least for the lottery picks.
Maybe the thing too, is he going to be a center at the NHL level? Like, that's the big thing, right? That's a question about like the full transition, but it's just, I love so much of his game. I just don't get, he just screams out who's going to fall, but he's going to be one of the best in his draft class. At least in my opinion, he's got some of the best potential in the whole thing.
And we've seen that before with a certain someone who may or may not be traded this offseason, Alex DeBrincat.
That's always a weird one. Because even, what was it, like, I always forget, he's American, right? And he was left off the World Junior team.
Yeah, he was leading, wasn't he leading the OHL?
Yeah, he was one of the. Everyone knew how good he was, but it's like, he tiny boy, he fell.
So I'm gonna. Sorry.
Yeah, he was tiny boy, fell to 15th.
I'm gonna spoil something a little bit. I did have him as one of my potential picks at 25 and 26.
Did you really?
I did. I think it's a bit of a stretch. It's just like we've seen it. It's the NHL. Like we want to pretend like they're and listen, Detroit may just completely screw things for me. Because if there's a team in that top 10 that I have no idea what they're going to do, it's going to be Detroit, like you said. But man, would I love him at 25.
Here's what's interesting. And I think when we talk about, I was going to say Marco Rossi, not Marco Rossi. When we talk a little later about Logan Cooley, and then you can sort of have the same discussion here with Frank Nazar, is who's a new GM that knows the U.S. developmental program really well? Because not only him, but his head coach's sons are playing in it. Kent Hughes. So that's a question I have, and people have been mentioning it because they know it really, really well. But yeah, just not Detroit. Okay. Gentlemen, let's get our top 10 up here. Okay, let's do our
top 10.
Let's do our top 10. I'm going to get the cap-friendly draft list up here. I'm not going to lie. I didn't really do it so much fit with team as I just did best player available. Mainly because Bergevin has scarred me. So I'm just kind of like, forget the tag of the team. Let's just go best player here. Even though it really does feel like if he's available, the Devils are really going to go after Slafkovsky. Weren't they one of the teams who asked if he could play center? No, I'm pretty sure Vancouver did, which was weird. Okay. First overall, the Montreal Canadiens. I have Shane Wright. I think you guys already said it.
Yep.
We can go to 2. Second overall, I have Logan Cooley, who's probably, everyone who doesn't know, if Wright's the safe two-way player, Cooley's the little tiny boy as well. I don't think he's too tiny boy, but is probably the best facilitator in the draft. So I have him second overall in New Jersey. And I'm ignoring the fact that they already have centers at the wide best player available. I just think he's a good player.
This is all if they still have that pick.
Yes, because we know it's in there. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, I had Logan Cooley here as well. I think what the Devils have to look at is someone who at least has a bit of, are they going to be NHL ready maybe this year or next year? Because when I talk about immediacy, I think Montreal can do what they can in terms of just stockpiling talent and then continue developing. But I think with the Devils, they've been at it too long and they've added certain contracts and extensions there that there has to be some semblance of another, step forward and a result, at least at this point, in my opinion.
Alex, who do you have second?
I have Slafkovsky.
Okay, fair enough.
I have Slafkovsky at 2. I just think I think to me, it's a mix of need and best player available. And obviously New Jersey, I think clearly likes him, but I think it seems like he's a power forward and that's what they need. Like, yes, it's a need, but at the same time, he's the best. He's one of the best players available. And I think whether it's next year or it's 2 years down the line, slap him next to Hughes or Hischier, and that's a fit and a half, I think, for them.
Mm-hmm. Going to third, it's Arizona. I have David Jiricek. I just think Arizona probably needs to bolster some D there. So see if Chikrin's gone. Bit of a different game, but I think that's a pretty solid piece to sort of build there. So I have Jiricek 3. Patrick screaming at me running. He's like, Nemec. I don't care.
All right. Let me go
Daniel,
go next.
Yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. For third, I have Slafkovsky. There, I think that in my scenario, I think the Coyotes are going to look at this pick and say, we arguably got someone who could have gone first. We really believe that he's going to be a player that's going to help us moving forward and being that franchise guy when he's ready.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Alex, go ahead.
This time I have Logan Cooley at 3 going to Arizona. I mean, I can repeat what you guys said, but pretty much for everything you guys talked about.
The Coyotes taking a skilled center at number 3. I think he's a center.
Yes, he is.
Dylan Strome. Dylan Strome. Apparently, somebody was like, "Yeah, Strome," and that they don't have a great history with the third overall
pick. Yeah. So I'm at the baseball game, right? Dylan Strome.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
By the way,
yes.
I think we mentioned. I don't remember if we said it on the show, but like the Coyotes really had bad luck in the lottery. I think they like always lose it, which is a shame, but not really. I saw a really funny tweet that someone joked around. See, the Coyotes don't like Wright because they don't think his game will translate to college ice. That was pretty funny. Number 4, I have Nemec. I don't see him getting past 4, especially Seattle. This is the only pick where I looked at the team because it's just been so people have just sort of mentioned offensive D in Seattle all year. Going like to Klingberg and that. So I have Nemec going forward.
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to interrupt you, Daniel, but I also have Nemec.
Oh, yeah, I also.
Okay, so we all have Simon. Like, it just fits, right? Like, we all said they need a power play quarterback, and everyone just assumed they were going to go get Dougie Hamilton, which they didn't. This is a guy, I guess, who could potentially do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we move on to the Philadelphia Flyers at 5th overall, and this is where I have Yaroslav Slavkovsky. And do you know what? Now that I've actually realized I matched him 5th, the fit works. He won't make it to 5, but Slavkovsky fits 5th. I think he would be a damn good Flyer. Dan and Alex, who do you have at 5?
At 5, I have David Jiricek going there. Once I saw 6'3" and more of a big defenseman going. I'm like, okay, the Philadelphia Flyers. There it is.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I have someone neither of you said. I have Cutter Gauthier.
So you still don't have Jiricek, hey? You went with Cutter.
I did, just because, and this is where I did really look at the team, and I just read the description, and I'm like, and it's not like it's completely off, right? He definitely could go around here, but I read this description of him: big body forward who brings power and goal scoring.
See, this is where it starts.
The Philadelphia Flyers.
This is where in the draft, hell, it could get interesting. It's like, but Cutter Gauthier was a guy on a few lists that he was going high. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that. But I think you're going to start seeing our lists get a little neat here. You gave 5, right? You said Jiricek as well, Daniel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Columbus 6. I have Matt Savoy, who I thought it was Savoy, but I watched a video of Bardown interviewing him, and he said it was Savoy. He's not French, so maybe that's why. But I have Savoy, goal scoring boy, great hair, by the way, great hair. I have him going to Columbus.
Oh, for me, I have Marco Kasper actually going to Columbus. I thought that'd be a solid pick.
That high, eh?
Yeah, someone who I think he has the good upside. You know, they did really well with Cole Sillinger last year. Not going to say he's going to make it to the NHL right away, Marco Kasper, but he is someone that he has the upside I like about it, and I think Columbus would do well to just get another center because they always need more forwards.
Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, sorry.
I want to talk about Kasper in a second, though, because I really like him.
At 6, I have David Jiricek.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Going to Columbus.
New partner.
Yeah, exactly.
So the elite prospect stuff is really funny because they have like different charts and information. When you go to Marco Kasper, it's just the first thing they show is his shot heat map, right? And they're all in front of the net. It's really funny. When I was reading it, I saw the shot map and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I look at his description, shades of Zach Hyman and Brendan Gallagher. I was like, there it is. A lot of the European guys seem to really like Marco Kasper. Another guy whose ranking is a bit mixed. I have him a little further down, I won't lie. But, yeah, good old guy. We go to 7. It's Ottawa. I have Joakim Kemmel. I had a really difficult time sort of ranking guys as we go here. I thought about putting Frank Nazar around here. I was going to have him 6, but something in my head's like, nah, they won't be smart. And the Sens won't be smart enough, and they're going to get Joakim Kemmel. Nothing against Kemmel, but.
Mm-hmm. For me, here going there, I think At 7, I have the new prospect we just talked about, Matthew Savoy, because I did not know how to say his last name either. So, But I have him going to Ottawa. They're a team that they could do really well getting more centers as well. You know, Chris Tierney is still playing quite a few minutes. They probably want to take the next step. I think it goes well.
There is sorry, just before you go, Alex, I think there is a debate about who's the better goal scorer between Savoy and Kemmel. So, and again, Kemmel's another guy, I'll admit, was up and down some lists. Go ahead, Alex.
I have Savoy at going to Ottawa as well.
We are pretty somewhat around here. We're on a little not as divided as I thought we would be. Number 8, Detroit. I put Frank Nazar. I put him there. I have him there.
I'm gonna hate it so much when I get him.
It's annoying. Daniel, who do you have at 8?
This is where I have Kemmel.
Oh, okay, not bad,
Yeah.
not bad.
That's actually also where I have Kemmel.
Number 9 is where I put Cutter Gauthier. Okay. Who knows with Buffalo? I mean, they're gonna have a wild draft, I think, regardless of all they have. 9 with you guys.
Daniel?
For me, I have, and I don't know if I'm going to say his name right, but Nathan Gaucher, Gaucher from the Q, playing in Quebec. Big two-way center guy. I think they have gone off the board before when they had top picks like Jack Quinn, but I don't know. Maybe I have the Tage Thompson bias right now. I'm like, look what they're doing with their big centers.
Daniel, you did go a bit mixed there. I was trying to remember. I'm like, it's a familiar name, but where? Because he is. I mean, off the board exactly. Fair enough, Daniel. I mean, Alex, 9.
I have Connor Geeky going number 9. Now, I know this is a guy who was up there, especially earlier in the year, and has kind of fallen down. And I mean, he might not even go 9th. But that being said, Buffalo has in the past taken a guy who may be projected to be a little later and taken him in the top 10.
I have neither of your picks in my top 12, by the way. This is where you're going to see it's going to be wild.
Yep.
Okay, number 10, it's Anaheim. This is where I have Marco Kasper. I don't know. I feel like Verbeek would really like a player like him. I feel like he really would. Go ahead. Alex and Dan, why not?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, why not?
So I have going to Anaheim. I have Pavel Mintyukov, who obviously we talked about earlier, Russian guy. I still think he stays in the top 10, and it's Anaheim. He's a defenseman.
That's a very good point.
Very good point. And again, because it feels like a bit of a toss up in terms of not that they're not the players in this range aren't good. It's just that there's a lot of depth. I think you could say in this draft, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go number 10 to Anaheim.
I don't have him far behind you, Alex. I won't lie. Daniel, go ahead.
All right. So for the Ducks, the pick I'd want here is Kevin Korchinski. I think that he is the definition of the new but also classic type of pick the Ducks would have. So he has a lot of size, has a bit of bite to his game, but he moves the puck very, very well. From what I've read, also from The Athletic, not Erik Karlsson level, but he could develop a bit of that handle that Brett Burns had later on.
You have a wild list, Daniel. I won't lie. You have the wildest one here. Okay, number 11, we have the Sharks, funny enough. Okay, I have a guy who has been very mixed. And it's very important where I want to make a quick pause here. So obviously, Bruce Garriock and Elliot Friedman both said the Canadians are very interested in getting into the top 10. Fun splash, like another pick, I should say. Now, they interviewed Cooley. They brought him to dinner. They brought Wright to dinner. And there was another player they brought to dinner. Swedish, skating ability, goal scoring. Shades of Mike Hoffman. Let's hope the 5-on-5 plays a little better, though. At 11, and a guy I would like the Habs to get, if they got him, I'd be happy. I'm going to say it wrong. I know I am. Jonathan Lekkerimäki. Lekkerimäki, the Swede, is who I have at 11. And I would not be surprised if the Habs walked away or at least tried to get him at the draft.
Who has 11th? Sorry.
San Jose.
Ooh, interesting.
Yep.
And Josh Anderson will be a San Jose Shark. Let's just throw him in another contract.
Unless Lecker falls to 13 and hello there, Islanders. Anyway, though, who do you guys have at 11?
For me, this is where I have Frank Nazar. I think that this is where you kind of take. What's wrong?
No, I'll let you finish.
Okay. I saw you had this look. I think because when I was looking at what the Sharks need, they kind of need a bit of everything. But I think with Nazar, it's someone that, and I mentioned before, he has the Marco Rossi comparison. And I think the way San Jose is right now with who they have there, they have to use this pick to get what I view a high potential pick. Someone that could really develop later on into being a cornerstone guy for them. So I think they take the swing here.
It's just 11 for Nazar. It's just so disrespectful. It's like, Daniel, you don't have Jurassic Park on your, like, what is it? Top 25?
Oh, you're gonna mention
it's so disrespectful. And you've done it with Frank Nazar. By the way, Lecker Mackey, I wanted to mention, is a guy who's had a very wide draft thing. I wanted to mention that he's been all over, but it's just so disrespectful.
I have Marco Kasper at 11.
Oh, okay. Good. Sorry, I just realized I realized I'm just like, I'm the only one who went to 12, and I'm like, guys, but you're 11.
Okay. I went far.
I just realized I made you guys.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, 12.
I think Daniel and I know enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Number 12 is where I have Pavel Mintyukov going to Columbus. That's where I have him. Which I want to say, is he the top? Because I think I want to double check, but I know I mentioned it, but is he the guy who plays with Saginaw?
Yes.
So I think he is the top rated OHL defenseman, by the way. I think I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I think he is.
Yes, he is. He's the top North American defenseman.
Oh, okay.
NHL draft prospect ranking.
And you guys, your 12 picks. Just out there.
Same as you, Adam.
Yukov. So you don't have Gauthier in your top 12?
No.
Wow. Go ahead, Alex.
I'll go with Jonathan Lecker. I can't say it. Leckerimaki.
I can't
Is
wait.
That how you pronounce it?
I think so. I don't know. I thought it was Nemec all year into the Nemec, and I still don't believe it's Nemec.